Will they be shown these tapes?
100%.
Will they have to watch it in court? Like during the...
100%.
Combs was improperly contacting and paying off a witness in the case.
Awful. They are going to be watching basically porn for hours on end in front of people.
Judge Ein Supermannen has ruled on the search of Diddy's jail cell and the documents collected. Following this, Diddy's lawyers are quitting, possibly because the evidence is too damaging. As for his alleged freak-off tapes, they might be played in court if they are deemed relevant to the case.
But basically the idea is that this was a pretext to search Sean Combs' unit. But the idea here is there was a raid to search for contraband. This is a detention center that has been plagued with violence and drugs and weapons. Okay, so this raid, this sweep, it happens. And this investigator, Investigator 1, apparently took photos of 19 pages of Sean Combs' notes and sent them to a filter team. Now, a filter team is supposed to be an independent, third-party team not connected to the prosecutors that are involved in Combs' actual criminal case. They go through the documents and they make sure there's not anything in there that's attorney-client or work product privilege, okay? So the order continues from Judge Subramanian. In November, the government included some of what it received from the filter team in its opposition to Combs' bail application, and Combs objected, arguing that those notes contained privileged information and were obtained in violation of Combs' constitutional rights. The court held an emergency hearing at which the government indicated that it would not rely on the notes in opposing the bail application. The court ordered the case team to get rid of the notes in its possession, which it did.
In October 2024, federal authorities and staff at the Metropolitan Detention Center conducted a planned security sweep of Diddy's jail cell. During the search, investigators discovered documents proving that Diddy had been in contact with witnesses through three-way phone calls and by allegedly using other inmates' calling privileges. Diddy's lawyers argued that the raid violated his Fourth and Sixth Amendment rights and demanded the case be dismissed. However, in a new ruling, Judge Ein disagreed, stating that the trial would proceed regardless.
The prosecutors, they did initially want to use those notes in arguing that Combs should be denied bail. Why? Because they seem to indicate that those notes suggest Combs was improperly contacting and paying off a witness in the case. Yeah, they say this will show it. But yes, Judge Subramanian, in the end, ordered that those 19 pages be destroyed and that the government did not and could not use those notes in their argument for bail, but for Sean Combs it didn't matter. He was denied bail nonetheless. So according to the government, a person referred to as Investigator 1 had apparently been monitoring Sean Combs' phone calls and other communications. That's one of the ways that officials learned that Combs was allegedly breaking the jail rules by reportedly doing things like using other inmates' ID numbers or initiating three-way phone calls to potentially contact somebody he wasn't supposed to. But the defense has raised alarm bells when they say that this investigator improperly took photos of privileged notes in Combs' cell and then gave that information to the prosecution, despite the fact that the defense claims the word legal was written on the notepads, meaning there's attorney-client privilege issue.
Call records from the Metropolitan Detention Center already proved that Diddy was in contact with witnesses and victims in his upcoming trial, making the newly found documents just extra evidence. Judge Ein ruled that prosecutors couldn't use the seized documents, but that didn't matter. Prosecutors didn't even need them to make their case.
New details this morning in the sex trafficking case against Sean Diddy Combs. Prosecutors now claiming that from behind bars, Combs has been trying to reach out to victims and possible witnesses. And ABC's Phil Lipoff is here now with this story. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Gio. Diddy's lawyers trying for a third time to get him out on bail, but this time, the prosecution telling the judge about attempts they say the rap mogul made from behind bars to influence everyone from potential jury to alleged victims.
The boss, dudes is lost. Don't think cause I'm iced out, I'ma cool off.
This morning, prosecutors leveling new accusations against Sean Diddy Combs, saying he poses a serious risk of danger even from behind bars as he awaits trial. In a court filing late Friday, prosecutors detailing the steps they say Combs is taking while locked up to reach out to prospective witnesses and influence public opinion to affect potential jurors.
The accusations within the prosecution's motion to deny bail are very serious and will be considered very heavily by the judge, because the judge is going to want to ensure that he is not influencing witnesses and or contacting anyone to influence the trial in any way.
Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges of racketeering, transportation to engage in prostitution, and sex trafficking. He denies any wrongdoing. The government now asking a judge not to grant Combs' third request for bail, in which the music mogul offers a $50 million bail package, citing new evidence and changed circumstances.
According to our sources, Diddy is not being housed in a solitary cell. And what's more surprising, the sources say he could still get his freak on, so to speak. There is apparently a secret system that inmates on the block all seem to know about, a way to spy on the female inmates who are housed one floor below them. I thought there's no way there could be some way to contact the ladies down below, but tell me how it worked.
It's a dormitory Puff Daddy's in. He's not in cells. So there's a big dorm with a bunch of bunks, and then there's a little room where you go into, and it's like a workout area. But it's not really a yard, you would say. It's just like with gates, like you see right there in the building. And you could literally lay down, and the females are right below you, and you could just yell at them, and they yell back, and basically like you could kind of see them, and they could see you a little bit, but you have to watch out for the guards, obviously. But you can talk with them and, you know, show each other some things sometimes, which I never did any of that.
To make matters worse for Diddy, this ruling came right after prosecutors filed a superseding indictment, adding more victims to the case and extending the time frame of the allegations. This move makes it even harder for Diddy to fight the charges or secure an early release. We'll get back to who these new victims might be in a moment.
Means that the previous charges have been updated and the government have added new details to the case. They've expanded either the charges against someone, which isn't what happened here, or they have added new detail about the alleged crimes, which is what is happening in this particular case.
So what's new, what's different in this superseding indictment?
There are no new charges against Diddy. Like you said, he's still accused of sex trafficking, of racketeering and transportation for the purposes of prostitution. But what the prosecutors have done is expanded the case with more details. They've added 2 new female victims, and they've also said that the alleged crimes took place over a longer time frame than they'd initially said. It now runs from 2004 to 2024, whereas before it had just been a 16-year time span.
And you mentioned there about adding new victims. That's victim 2 and victim 3 referred to in this indictment, but we already had a victim. We had victim 1. They're still in it?
Yes, that's right. So victim 1 is the case that they built the federal prosecution on.
And they say about these 3 victims, Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise wielded the power of the Combs global enterprise to intimidate, threaten and lure female victims into Combs's orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force and coercion to cause victims, including but not limited to 3 female victims, 1, 2 and 3, to engage in commercial sex acts. In connection with the commercial sex acts, Combs provided the victims with, among other things, monetary payments, career opportunities and payments of rent and housing expenses.
Everyone close to Diddy is either speaking out against him or distancing themselves. Anthony Rico, one of Diddy's lawyers, has now filed a motion to withdraw from the case, citing discussions with Diddy's lead counsel, Mark Agnifilo. This move suggests growing instability within Diddy's legal team as the case against him intensifies.
He's doing fine. It's a difficult circumstance. He's making the best of the situation.
A situation one of Diddy's attorneys won't be part of moving forward. Anthony Rico announcing in court docs, under no circumstances can he continue defending the embattled rapper.
This is a serious proceeding with serious consequences, and all of us are addressing it accordingly.
In a motion filed on Thursday, Rico stopped short of revealing why he's stepping down from Diddy's legal team, just months ahead of the music mogul's scheduled trial date in May for sex trafficking and racketeering charges, all of which Diddy's denied.
You know, Dr. King called it the law of unintended consequences. So sometimes the more you push a person down, the stronger they get.
That's Rico speaking up late last year for his now former client. ET's learned the attorney's exit will not affect Diddy's other attorneys, nor their defense strategy.
I told Mr. Combs I'm going to try and get his case to trial as quickly as possible. He has been ready to defend this case since he first found out about this case. Nothing has changed from his perspective.
You're going to hear about my party. They're going to be shutting them down. They're going to probably be arresting me.
After Diddy was arrested, Rico said he provided a high level of legal representation. But now, for reasons unknown, he can under no circumstances effectively serve in the upcoming trial.
Nobody's okay with staying in jail for now.
Former federal prosecutors and legal experts believe that the new witness is likely someone who helped Diddy organize his freak-off parties, with many speculating it could be his assistant, Philip Pines. Diddy's former assistant has just given a statement against him, and his account closely aligns with the prosecutor's case. This is direct eyewitness testimony, and Diddy is reportedly terrified of what it could mean for him.
A former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs speaking out in a new interview with new allegations about wild parties and drug use. Eva Pilgrim is here with the story. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning, Michael. At this point, we've all probably heard about these infamous parties. Diddy's assistant now giving us details about what he says were called Wild King Nights.
It's official. I survived what I've been through.
This morning, new details allegedly inside Diddy's world before his shocking arrest. The entertainment mogul now behind bars for federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges.
It was a circus. He did whatever he wanted, and we were just at his disposal.
Phil Pines was Diddy's senior executive assistant from 2019 to 2021. He says his then boss asked him to purchase supplies for parties dubbed Wild King Nights.
We usually had a laundry list of items that included lights, alcohol, marijuana. Those requests started to become more frequent.
Pines claims many of these parties involved younger women.
A lot of times you'd have him with a younger female. There's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand the consent.
He says from what happened at these lavish-fueled nights called Wild King Nights. So this 32-page lawsuit, which was reviewed by multiple outlets, including Rolling Stone, was apparently filed in Los Angeles by a man named Philip Pines, who says he worked for Diddy from 2019 to 2021. So actually more recent than some other suits we've seen against Sean Combs that have been in the early 2000s or even the 90s. But according to reporting in the suit, Pines is alleging a few different things here. Now, before we even get into it, and there is a lot to get into, you might be wondering, what the heck does that name mean? What are we talking about when we said Wild King Nights? Well, part of this lawsuit alleges that Pines had to prove his loyalty to Sean Combs, who was dubbed the King, by performing sex acts for him, hence the name Wild King Nights. The suit even reportedly says that Pines was treated, quote, like an animal playing fetch in order to prove his loyalty.
Diddy is suing NBC for airing the documentary, claiming it is defamatory.
Sean Diddy Combs sues NBC for $100 million over its Peacock documentary about him. According to docs obtained by E! News February 12th, the Bad Boy Records founder filed a lawsuit against NBC Universal seeking $100 million after Peacock, the streaming service owned by the media company, released the documentary Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy. In the filing, Combs, who is currently in jail on sex trafficking and racketeering charges, accuses NBC Universal of defamation and alleged that the company maliciously and recklessly broadcast the documentary, which included claims that the rapper committed crimes like serial murder and sexual minors without having a shred of evidence. The filing reads, in making and broadcasting these falsehoods, among others, defendants seek only to capitalize on the public's appetite for scandal without any regard for the truth and at the expense of Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial. In particular, Combs alleges that the documentary, released on Peacock on January 14.
One of the calls Diddy allegedly made from prison has surfaced, and it is shocking. In the recording, Diddy can clearly be heard instructing someone to get rid of the evidence. He also hints at having an ace up his sleeve, suggesting he has a plan to counter the case against him.
Diddy's prison phone call just leaked and it was posted by Social Details. This is allegedly a call that he had, and there's a lot of talk, a lot of code words in there, so we're going to listen to it together. Check it out.
Do not entertain none of this nonsense and nothing over the phone.
this alleged leak call from Diddy in prison was talking about getting rid of pizza boxes. Now, if you know your stuff and you're privy, you know exactly what pizza stands for, and that's probably what they're talking about and referring to on this alleged leak call. Pizza, for those who don't know, I'm gonna make it very clean. It has to do with children and selling.
Make sure you recycle the plastic like you talked about.
Now, in this alleged phone call, he starts talking about someone named Jay. People are speculating that maybe Jay-Z, but there's no confirmation. At the same time, he talks about recycling plastic. I don't know what that could mean. If you guys have any idea, comment and let me know.
Everybody out there quiet as Yeah, exactly. We gonna let them have their little fun, but I'm still gonna have the last laugh.
I mean, it seems by the call that he's looking for help. He's saying that a lot of people are quiet, I guess people that are on his side, and that he's gonna have the last laugh at the end.
Man, just do what I told you to do, and don't forget about the list.
And then he goes on to say, don't forget about the list. We don't know what that list is or what that implies, but this is pretty crazy. Do I think this is legitimate? There is no confirmation yet if this is legitimate or not, but this is the alleged leak call of Diddy. Tell me what you guys think.
What is this ace Diddy mentioned? According to some, it's his connections within the federal government. Just days after the call was leaked, reports emerged that Diddy was allowed to leave the Metropolitan Detention Center in the middle of the night for a medical checkup, an unusual privilege that has raised suspicions about his influence and possible favors being pulled behind the scenes.
Why does he get the cover of darkness? Why does he get taken out because he needs an aspirin? Help me, Dr. Hendricks.
Well, I'll tell you, each inmate gets a physical within 14 days of their arrival at any facility. And I'm sure, based on reports of him having several knee surgeries throughout the years after being a marathoner back in 2003. So this may have been in the works in terms of getting him out for an MRI, because I know that they don't have that equipment at the institution. And I'll just tell you this, they probably had set this appointment up months, maybe weeks ago, and they set it up for the evening.
To leave at 1 a.m. in the cover of darkness? Okay, you think that's what they set up, Hendricks? Look, I know you're being loyal to MDC, but can we get real? Leaving MDC because your knee hurts?
If he was a part of that, how did he get the key to the city? That's crazy to me. If he was in incidents and everything around the city that wasn't favorable, how you get key to the city? So now you got to realize, if they had the mayor under investigation since 2014, Diddy was in investigation around 2011, 9 or 11, something like that. They say either 9 or 11. One of those people are responsible for the feds looking out after one, or either Diddy responsible, his interaction with the mayor, or the mayor interaction with Diddy may have caused the feds to be looking at both of them in some form or fashion. I don't know which one was first. Was it Diddy interaction with the mayor, or the mayor interaction with Diddy? Which one did the Fed have under surveillance first? And I think it was probably Diddy.
Diddy is known to be close friends with Mayor Eric Adams, and interestingly, right after Diddy's arrest, Mayor Adams was also indicted on corruption charges. Just weeks before Diddy's arrest, he was given the key to the city, despite the mayor already knowing about the investigation against him. This raises serious questions. Did Diddy have leverage over the mayor, or were they both involved in something bigger?
Big breaking news tonight. For the first time in the history of New York City, a sitting mayor has been indicted for crimes. ABC News reporting that Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury. We do not know yet the exact charges. Federal authorities have been investigating Adams and members of his staff, issuing subpoenas for documents and cell phones. Several members of administration have resigned, some of them also friends of Mayor Adams. Again, Eric Adams, the 110th mayor of New York, has been indicted by a federal grand jury. We'll have the latest online and tonight on Eyewitness News at 11.
New at 5, the legal troubles continue for Sean Diddy Combs tonight after a judge ordered the music mogul to pay $100 million to a Michigan man who says that he was sexually assaulted by Combs in '97.
According to court documents, Derek Cardello Smith says Combs drugged and then assaulted him during an after party at a Holiday Inn in Detroit. But Combs never responded to the lawsuit in court. On Monday, the judge ordered him to pay $10 million each month starting in October. The victim is currently behind bars serving a 75-year prison sentence for criminal sexual conduct and kidnapping.